So I'm very happy to welcome everybody here today. We're going to do questions and answers, which I always enjoy a lot. But I thought I would read you the questions in advance so that you can understand how how other people ask questions, which is nice for you. Because in terms of the Dharma, we have to listen to the teachings, of course, but it isn't only a matter of it goes in your ear and that you register that there's a teaching, but that you think about it. And then you contemplate. Maybe you think about it through the week. You think, you relax, you think, you relax. You probably might generate a question from those teachings. And then leaving questions unasked is sort of an opportunity lost. And so instead, we value very greatly the questions of students. And the questions themselves are an opportunity for greater understanding. Sometimes questions are just kind of theoretical, I'll get an occasional question about UFOs or something, which I usually ignore. I do reserve the right to ignore questions if they're not well-founded for me to answer them. I'm so sorry. Sometimes you might get lost in the shuffle for certain kinds of questions. Although I'm not opposed to talking about UFOs someday when it is appropriate. But questions is a very big part of our tradition. And questions left unanswered produce doubt. And doubt always has a challenge. It's a problem because it diminishes your capacity to utilize your time. When you have a standing doubt, most of us have doubt anyway, and doubt is quite useful. You should think carefully. You should listen to the teachings. You should have questions, and you should resolve doubt. Doubt needs to be resolved. Otherwise, it's just a kind of I feel like it's a rotten piece of the floor. If you have a house and in your house there's a rotten piece in the floor, you try to go around it and not step on it, but in an emergency or something, you might step on that spot and it'll go right through because you didn't resolve that doubt. You didn't deal with that question. And questions unresolved sort of turn into their own belief system. Then you start believing the doubt as if it were really valid. But the teachings usually are able to address doubts. And the teachings are usually able to, having helped us resolve a doubt, gives us again confidence to meditate. But it is the meditation itself that really truly makes the difference. We can learn and understand, but anything we learn and understand, we can easily forget. But when you meditate and you come to great experience in your own realization, that's not forgettable. It's something that becomes part of you and strong and helpful, always really helpful. So contemplation, relaxation, asking questions, getting answers, and then meditating on what you understand allows for greater wisdom and depth to become integrated in your own living experience. And that's what helps us with our life and with the changes that we face in our life. Otherwise, without meditation, just understanding or just having listened, or not even really having listened or understood, just being interested in the teachings isn't enough. because life is tough. Challenges are very difficult. The conditions of birth and sickness and aging and death are going to arise for all of us. When we can't get what we want, when we can't prevent what we don't want, we become upset, disgruntled, we become unhappy and easily disappointed. So the teachings of the Buddha and the path of the Buddha are meant to help us eliminate this kind of suffering and place us at a level of fulfillment and well-being. And not only just for you, but certainly for you, but also for others that are connected to you. Because as well as you are is how well you can be for someone else. If you're not well, how are you going to be well for someone else? And so with that idea of establishing this kind of altruistic motivation that, yes, I listen to the teachings and contemplate, ask questions, get answers, and then meditate to direct experience in order that I can bring benefit to my family and my friends and further to all lost mother, sentient being. This is the proper motivation for asking questions and getting answers. It's a proper motivation for all that we do. So there are many questions here, and if I organize them, I would say, first, there is the question, how can meditation and Buddhist practice help with emotions? And there are other questions that are in the same category, such as, how can I deal with feelings of humiliation and shame after being despised or attacked publicly? How could I possibly respond with kindness? How could I feel compassion for someone who deliberately chooses to do harm for other beings so that other beings suffer? Isn't there some sort of punishment given to us by the Buddhas, or something that happens to people who don't correctly practice the Dharma? What is the difference between virtue and kindness? Can virtue be expressed through small, simple gestures, or does it require something significant and effortful? What is actually considered virtue? And what should I do if I'm not able to follow the instructions of the Lama? All of these questions are very valuable questions and important for all of us. And there's no one of us who hasn't been through these kinds of questions concerning the teachings of the greater vehicle of the Mahayana. But in order to really understand the answers to these kind of questions, we kind of have to see the Buddha Dharma from a bird's eye view, overlooking the teachings of the Buddha. And so the Buddha, as a great realized being, understood that we as humans are looking at life in a way that can't produce fulfillment or well-being. It will instead just produce greater and greater suffering. And so the Buddha taught many methods to help change the way that we understand life, a broader picture to understand life, so that we can fulfill our wish to be free of suffering and to find happiness, which is basically what everybody's trying to do. Nobody wants to be miserable and unhappy. Everybody wants to be happy. But the way that we look at the life, the way we understand the life, we aren't able to produce relief from suffering or the causes and conditions that would make us happy. in a lasting way. Like, we can eliminate a little bit of suffering. If it's too hot, you turn on the air conditioner. If it's too cold, you turn on the heater. We can do that amount of effort and produce those kinds of results, but the results are always impermanent. So if we're looking to produce lasting results in the cessation of suffering and lasting results in the accomplishment of happiness and fulfillment, we have to look further than just manipulating the air conditioner. And so the Buddha taught how to reduce the suffering immediately, like, yes, change the air conditioner, but also how to find a solution that is the whole solution to the whole problem. And that one is amazing. So basically, the Buddha taught different ways for different people. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It depends upon you. And so if you're the kind of person who is really can understand that reducing your negative actions is going to reduce negative results. If you can understand that increasing positive actions is going to produce positive results. Most of us can follow that logic, but sometimes it doesn't make sense to us because we think, well, that guy is the worst guy on the planet, and he's not getting any bad results from his terrible actions. And this wonderful person, lovely person, is trying their very hardest, and nothing they do is producing good results. No matter what they do, it's just not working for them. So as outsiders, we look at this and we think, well, maybe the Buddha isn't answering this question. The teachings are not answering this question because the Buddha said, do no harm whatsoever and practice virtue thoroughly. If you do no harm, like if you don't throw rocks, no one's going to throw rocks at you. If you are kind and good, then everyone will be kind and good to you. That's what the Buddha said. And he went on to say, in addition to that advice, do no harm whatsoever and do virtue thoroughly, he said, change your own mind. That's the teaching of the Buddha. It's so simple. No matter how many teachings you look at, they all boil down to this one simple approach. Do no harm whatsoever and do virtue thoroughly and change your own mind. Meaning, don't waste your time trying to change the mind of everybody else. Change your own mind. But for us, it doesn't quite make sense because it doesn't seem like the bad guy, bad things are happening to them, or the good guy, good things are happening to them. So it doesn't look like the Buddha is correct. The problem for us is we are not seeing very far. We only have a very small picture. As unenlightened beings, we can't see what came before in a previous life. We can't see what comes later in another life. And so it's a little bit like when you see the seed of a sequoia tree, it isn't huge and magnificent and thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. It's just a seed. So you can't see what that seed is going to make. This is why we rely on the Buddha's teaching, because the Buddha sees past time. The Buddha knows what the seed looks like. The Buddha knows what the causes and conditions are like. The Buddha knows what the result is like. And the Buddha can see from this vast perspective that we don't have, that every good seed produces a good fruit, and every bad seed produces a bad fruit. And for us, we can't see that. We aren't able to see that. So the Buddha taught different ways for different people. For someone like you or me who can understand that, okay, we can improve our story. We can reduce our negativity and not hurt and harm others. So we're not making bad seeds. Bad seeds unplanted are not producing bad fruits. And instead we can plant good seeds. And seeds planted will produce good fruit. Good seeds, good fruit. And we can see that if we change our own mind and choose to plant good seeds instead of bad seeds, then we can experience a different outcome. We have choices. We have options. And we choose self-improvement. That's one kind of person. But another person, with the same teaching, this bad seed produces this bad fruit, this good seed produces this good fruit, and the choice, we understand, isn't just me. My mother is making choices too. And mom doesn't understand that a good seed is going to produce a good result, and that a bad seed is going to produce a bad result. Mom doesn't understand that. Oh no, what is going to happen to mom? That's a different kind of person who thinks, oh no, this is going to go very badly for other people. They don't realize that every thought, word, and action, positive, negative, or neutral, is producing results, positive, negative, and neutral. And so then a whole different motivation starts to grow in the mind. It's not any longer a motivation just to improve my story. But even if it doesn't work for me, if it works for mom, great. How do I make this work for mom? How do I make this work for my brother? Oh my goodness, my brother never listens to me. How am I going to make this work for my brother? How am I going to make this work for my dog or my cat, my friend, my enemy? Poor enemy. Every thought, word, and action of my enemy is going to fall on my enemy's head. Que pena, how can that be? What can I do? That is a different person, and the Buddha taught a different way. For the ones who are able to care about the success of others, and not everybody can. I'm sure you know that. Not everybody is able to care about others. You would think they should. If you're a person who cares about others, you wouldn't even understand why in the world that would be so hard for them. If you're the one who thinks about others, but there are people who aren't able to do that. So the Buddha taught differently for different kinds of people. These are the two big distinctions in the Buddhist teachings, is the distinction between self-improvement and selflessness. And so this distinction between self-progress, self-benefit, self-improvement versus selfless improvement for all beings is a very, very big distinction. It's a very big difference in the mind. But all of us, most of the time, are managing our life for self-improvement. Most of the time. It's like, how we choose to eat our food is going to make us fat or thin. That's the simple thing we think about. Maybe we don't even think of fat or thin, it's just whether we like it or we don't like it. If we're going to eat, our rice and beans or we don't like it. It's always sort of dominant as an unenlightened being, that the Buddha, as an enlightened being, is looking at what's happening to us as unenlightened beings. Every day of our life, we're kind of worried about and busy with trying to get whatever we need and trying to avoid whatever we don't want or we don't like. We're very simple this way. And we're very busy this way. And we're not very successful at it either. Because the very thing that we want to eat could easily make us sick. And the very thing that we don't want to eat could easily make us well. So we don't even understand the simple benefits of self-improvement. We're not skillful. We don't understand. Now that's an uncomfortable position because we prefer to think we understand. But the Buddha is saying to us very sweetly, por favor, you don't understand that what you do is what you become. What you do is what you become. If you do kindness, if you do share, if you do helping, you become that. Your life becomes that. Your world becomes that. Your world becomes kind. Your world becomes sharing. Your world becomes easy and fulfilling. But we don't understand that we do have a power, the power to choose what you're doing. And most of us are still choosing to do selfish. We're choosing to do me, my, mine. Me, my family, my stuff. We're trying to fix and make it all work, me, my, mine. So we are on this path of selfish improvement. And the whole world does that, so it looks normal. This is what everybody's doing, even in the traffic. They're doing this. And then there's this odd person in the traffic who's letting you go first. I mean, at first you're shocked. Oh, go. They're letting you go first. You're stunned a little bit. Or, depending on your personality, they should have let you go anyway, kind of person. But there are examples in the world of people who care about your happiness more than they care about their own. They're very rare in the world. But those people still create virtue and non-virtue. So whether you're selfish or you're kind and loving, what you do is going to happen to you. Both cases. So a selfish person who is practicing harmlessness and a selfish person practicing kindness, like we can all understand that. There's a good day that you should be paying for dinner, that it makes sense to pay for dinner with the client because you're going to get more later. So you look good, but it's still selfish. A lot of the time. It looks good, but it's still selfish. And the other guy who's being selfless might not even look good. Like, he wants you to be happy, so he gives you his half-eaten apple and gives it to you, and you're like, yuck. Yuck. Ew. It doesn't, but they were doing something different. They were being kind and loving and not being selfish. They were being selfless. They were thinking more about you. Now that distinction, even if they can't do it well, is called motivation. It's the motivation that the Buddha is pointing at. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you being kind? Why are you smiling? If you're offering a smile because you think that means an enemy might not hurt you, that's normal. That's what happens in our world. Because we're basically selfish. We are basically selfish beings. And sometimes we could be selfless. There may be a moment when you would give the apple, even though you might still be hungry. You could think about the other person more than you. This is what the Buddha is talking about when the Buddha talks about compassion. Compassion is understanding the problem of an unenlightened being. The problem of an unenlightened being is that we have karma. Everything we do, positive, negative, or neutral, with our body or our speech or our mind, is going to happen to us. It isn't God that's making these things happen to you. It isn't the devil making these things happen to you. It's karma. Karma is based on self. If you have self, you have karma. Positive, negative, or neutral. That's why the Buddha has compassion. Because we don't understand that we shouldn't be selfish. We don't even understand how to approach life not being selfish. It's just confusing. We don't understand the rules about love and compassion that isn't based on my own needs. So because of the compassion then the Buddha told us, okay, selfish or unselfish, everything you say or do is going to happen to you, so don't say bad things, don't do bad things. Don't blame everybody else. I mean, even if you can't understand the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha said, look, if a crazy person jumps off of a cliff, why would you do the same thing? That makes no sense for you. Just because somebody did something bad to you doesn't mean you should do something bad too. They already are going to be broken on the rocks below. Why would you follow their example and do something bad too? As if it's valid because, well, they did it. We see it in traffic all the time. The one guy who breaks the rules and rides on the shoulder because there's so much traffic he can't get through. I mean, we never know. Maybe he's got a dying person in the car. We don't know about that. But he's riding on the shoulder. He's driving that way. How many people follow? And then how many people sit in the lane giving them bad names and bad hand signals? If not bad names and bad hand signals, we just go, humph. Idiots. So we follow bad behavior with bad behavior. And the Buddha's saying, if someone does something bad, why in the world would you do that too? Instead, you would have compassion for someone who does something bad. They just leapt off a cliff. They're going to break in the bottom. There's no exception for karma. There's no free pass for karma. It's infallible, karma. And so what someone does is producing what will happen to them. And that is so sad. It's sad for you, and it's really sad for them. How many more of them are there than you? And still, we're the most important. I think it's funny because this issue, I just dropped that little rock there for very quickly about you are one and they are many. How many of them are suffering this? And yet, what we think about as unenlightened beings is ourself. Our one is giant. Their many is small. Compared to me, I hardly notice them. This is the problem with Ao, is that it's very big to us. It's very dominant to us. And as a result, we rationalize hurting and harming others. We rationalize for our own interest, for me and mine. And so we end up in Lots of trouble. Not because we're bad people, but because we're selfish. And you know, it's interesting because the Buddha didn't invent this system. Like we might think God made the system. The Buddha didn't make this system. This is what happens when you don't understand your own mind. There's karma. The Buddha didn't make karma. Nobody made it. Nobody to blame. Nobody that's making you a victim. Only not understanding what your own mind makes puts us in all this trouble of the results of everything that we think or say or do. It all comes from confusion. That's why changing your own mind is the power play. It's the one that makes the difference. So, in these questions like, how can meditation and Buddhist practices help us with our emotions? This is how. You understand you're not a victim. Ever. Because what happens to you because of previous actions. You're not a victim of God. You're not a victim of the devil. You're not a victim of your sogra. What happens to you and me and every being that's unenlightened, every being who has a self, is their own actions happen to them, physically, mentally, and verbally. And that is just so sad. Because all we want is to be happy. And yet we create the causes and conditions where we can't be happy. All we want is to be free of suffering. And yet we create the causes and conditions which certainly produce suffering that we experience. And so the difference then, the selfish people have the same rules of karma. The not selfish people have the same rules of karma. The difference is enlightenment. Because the selfless people, with the love and concern for all beings, will eventually attain enlightenment. Why? Because enlightenment is the state of realizing the true nature of the mind. And the true nature of our mind does not have self. It is selfless. It is limitless. It is unconditional love, compassion, and wisdom. And that's why the Buddha would teach us how to use love and compassion as a path to attain enlightenment. Not only for you, right? For all beings. Even the selfish ones could be taught. They could see, they could learn, they could change their motivation from selfish to selfless. And so we're not surprised in our path when we find people who deliberately choose to harm others. We understand. Que pena. Poor guy who does this. We follow in the footsteps of the Buddha with compassion for every harm doer, because they can't be successful. They will suffer on infinitum. As long as they are selfish and aggressive and harmful, they will suffer. And not even anybody's fault. And there's no punishment here. This is not punishment. This is just inevitable. Because what we do is what we become. This is the teaching of the Buddha. And so we would understand, well, birth, sickness, aging, and death is not a punishment. It's just the unfolding of our karma. Acting and reacting towards experiences in your life is the choice about fortune or misfortune. But finally, it's the taming of your own mind, the taming of your own motivation, the taming of your own selfishness that liberates you and exposes your Buddha nature, your enlightenment. This is how we heal the emotions. This is how we deal with hardship and difficulties. This is how we understand the tragedies that help and harm others. This is how we navigate for the enlightenment of all beings. It's funny because there's a question here about forgiveness. And forgiveness, in my opinion, as a Christian upbringing, understanding what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is a good quality for you and I to practice, not being angry about someone's harm upon us. But it isn't based in their mistake. That's why forgiveness isn't what the Buddhists use. We use compassion. Because it's understandable they make mistakes. You don't have the power to forgive their mistake. You don't have the power to purify their karma. But your compassion towards their mistake can lead you to greater and greater and greater ability to help them attain freedom and fulfillment, where forgiveness will only help you. It won't help them. So basically, if you are self-involved and you want self-improvement, you would practice harmlessness and helpfulness, because that would help you. You would have less problems and more qualities. If you're a selfless person, you would also practice harmlessness and helpfulness, but your purpose in doing so would be for the benefit of all beings. The action is the same, harmless and helpful. The difference is the motivation. The motivation that is self-involved, self-improvement, won't produce enlightenment because self is still binding. The selflessness of the Mahayana tradition, the greater tradition of love and compassion, would cause you to create the opportunity for enlightenment for you and all beings. That's the difference. So doing no harm means not hurting others with your body, your speech, and your mind, even if they're bad to you. Because we would understand bad to me means, okay, I'm experiencing the fruit of my own negative karma. So you would still be kind and loving, even if it was just selfishly, because that's what would help you. But more than that, if you understand that this person who's hurting you now is a fruit of karma, you would also understand that how they act is producing for them their future. And you would be the one, like the Buddha, to see the seed and the sequoia tree. You would understand, poor person, creating this kind of action of body, speech, and mind will hurt them. And you would have compassion. So what would you do then with your compassion? Compassion's not just left as a feeling. Compassion makes choices. Compassion makes decisions. Compassion navigates. It navigates for the betterment of the other. So what can I do to help them? You would create virtue. So what is virtue? Virtue is kindness. Virtue is generosity. Virtue is patience. Virtue is dedication and service. Virtue is physical, doing what you can physically, doing what you can verbally, doing what you can mentally, even if it's a tiny action, like feeding the birds. You give the food. The bird eats the food. The bird benefits from that food. There's virtue in your having given that food for the bird. It's not a big virtue, it's a small virtue. It's a small kindness. But your motivation is that it helps the bird and every other being throughout the limitlessness of all of time and space, that not one bird is left hungry, that even if it's any other kind of being, no matter what kind of being they could be, that this little act of virtue would help them. Because we know maybe they aren't able to be virtuous. Maybe nobody taught them. Maybe they never heard this idea. But we know the power of virtue and pure motivation. So we engage, do no harm, do virtue thoroughly, and tame your own motivation. Tame your own mind. This is the Buddha's teaching. This is how all beings benefit. Okay, maybe that's a very long answer, but there were a lot of questions. And yet it is really kind of the heart of the issue for us as beginners on the Buddhist path, is why are we really practicing? And many times we are practicing because it does fulfill us. We feel good about it. We like it. If we don't feel good about it, we don't do it. You know, that if it doesn't kind of fit into that category of personally satisfying me, why would I do it? I would do something else that's satisfying me, like eat ice cream. I would go find something to do that satisfies me. Because that's kind of who we serve in our own life. We serve ourselves. And it's a little bit hard at first to face that and understand, yeah, I am serving myself. I am worried about me. I mean, it's not hard to see. You can see it in every conversation. You're worried about yourself all the time. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Who's going to love you? How are you going to have enough? We're always preoccupied with ourselves. And maybe sometimes our preoccupation might move to my mother or my father or my children. Or maybe the dog is sick. Of course, we worry about the dog. It's my dog. But the me, my, mine is always there. This is what Chagdud Tulku Rinpoche called our sickness. That we have a sickness as unenlightened beings. And our sickness produces suffering. All the categories of suffering come from the same source, the same sickness. And that sickness is me, mine. And no matter how you want to color it, I'm a nice me. I'm a busy me. I'm a hardworking me. I'm a tired me. I'm a lonely me. I'm a helpless me. It's always me. I'm great me, like I won the World Cup. I'm a great me. No, I'm a terrible me. I lost the World Cup. What didn't move there was me. I. Mine. That is the sickness. And it perpetuates suffering. And the Buddha, out of infinite love and compassion, taught us how to get over this me, my, mine-itis. How to get better. How to wake up from this flaw. And so listening to the teachings is so valuable for us because we start to understand you're not the most important person in the world. And it's really a little bit uncomfortable to realize that. But it's the beginning of something so much greater. To know your own mind without this dominant insecurity of I. What I want, what I don't want, what I like, what I don't like, who I am, and all the negotiations of who I am, who you are, what you're supposed to do with me. If you don't do that with me, I'm going to fire you. And we're just busy with I, so busy with I and my wants and my hatreds. And then we die. The sad part is I always dies. But the true nature of your mind doesn't die. the true nature of who you are beyond I, that perfection never abandons you, never fails you. But it's not noticeable when we're so busy with I. We can't see who we really are. And that's what's happening to everybody. Que pena. I need to wake up from I in order that all beings could wake up from I and the suffering that I produces. So this is why the Buddha taught, and this is why so many listened. And this is why even to this day, this question is for you. What about me? What about me? It's such a small question and it's so dominant. It's really important to understand it's not a mistake what happens in your life. We usually, kind of try and understand by thinking something's gone wrong. But whatever has happened in your life belongs to you. It's your karma. So it doesn't work to be upset about that. Instead, the answer is compassion. This isn't easy. I don't like this, but this is karma for sure. But I'm not the only one in the world with karma. Every being has karma. This is what is happening to them all, and worse. So by that, even your difficulties lead you to enlightenment through the path of compassion and wisdom. And so our path is a path of compassion and wisdom. The compassion and wisdom to do no harm whatsoever, and to do virtue thoroughly, helping everyone as best you can in any way with your body and your speech and your mind. But most of all, you have to accomplish wisdom. You need to know who you are beyond I. That's what every unenlightened being needs to know to be free, to be fulfilled, to be okay. Otherwise, we're just not okay. Okay, we'll stop there. Please dedicate the merit to all beings, that all beings could be free of suffering and find the causes and conditions for immediate and ultimate benefit.
Throughout my many lives and until this moment, whatever virtue I have accomplished, including the merit generated by this practice, and all that I will ever attain, this I offer for the welfare of sentient being. May sickness, war, famine, and suffering be decreased for every being, while their wisdom and compassion increase in this and every future life. May I clearly perceive all experiences to be as insubstantial as the dream fabric of the night, and instantly awaken to perceive the pure wisdom display in the arising of every phenomena. May I quickly attain enlightenment in order to work ceaselessly for the liberation of all sentient beings. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas altogether, whatever kind of motivation you have, whatever kind of beneficial action, whatever kind of wishing prayers, whatever kind of omniscience, whatever kind of life accomplishment, whatever kind of benevolent power, and whatever kind of immense wisdom you have, then similarly I, who come in the same way to benefit being, pray to attain these qualities. At this very moment for the peoples and the nations of the earth, may not even the names disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. Rather may their moral conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase, and may supreme good fortune and well-being always arise for them.